Hello YouTube, welcome back to my channel. So in today's tutorial, we're going to go over a simple a video explaining what linear search is, or also called sequential search. You're going to explain just in brief, and then you're going to implement it in 3 different languages. You're going to implement it in Python, and then C++, and then finally Java. So let's get started. So first of all, we just want to explain how a linear search works. Okay, so for example, you can see the image on my screen. We are trying to look for the value 33 within a given array. This array can be sorted or cannot be sorted. So linear search can work for both sorted and unsorted array. In this case, our array is unsorted, and you're looking for the value 33 within our array. So what we'll do, we'll start from the very first elements, right? We'll compare it with the target that we want, which is 33. So 10 is not equals to 33, and then we'll move to 14. 14 is not equals to 33. We'll move to 19. 19 is not equals to 33. We'll move to 16. So we'll continue moving throughout the whole array until we find a value at a specific index which is equals to the target value that you're looking for. Okay, so in this case, we'll go to 10 no, 14 no, 19, 26 no, 31 no, and then 33. We finally find our value, and then we can return the index of where that value is. So let's get started, and let's check about the big O notation of linear search. Okay, so in the best case scenario, when the element is found at the very beginning of the array, then the time complexity is just a big O of 1, which is just constant time. This is because we just have to do only one comparison. And then in the worst case scenario, where the element that you're looking for is at the very end of the array, then the time complexity is linear, which is just log of n, because as the number of elements increases, the more time will take, right? So we have the more comparison we need to perform. And then the space complexity is just 1, since you're not creating any more other arrays in memory. We're working on the same array that we have. Okay, so in the best case scenario, and you can see that the linear complexity is 1, since the time complexity is just constant time, big O of 1, since we only have to do only one comparison. In the worst case scenario, as I explained, can be at the very end of the array, right? So we have to do n number of comparisons. So this is just a linear time. This is for the worst case scenario. Okay, so now let's look at the theory behind linear search. Let's go and implement it in Python, C++, and Java. So I'm going to open up my Visual Studio Code right here, and I'm simply going to create a Python file. I'm going to call it linear underscore search .py. Okay, linear search.py, and I'm going to just press enter. So what I'm simply going to do, I'm going to create a function def here, give it a space def, and this function is just we're going to call it linear search, and then this function is going to take in an array. So you can call this an array, or you can just call it item, or let's just call it array. Okay, we're just going to call it array, and then you're going to look for a value called x. Okay, so we're going to be looking for x. So what we're going to do, we're going to iterate through all the values within our array, and for each value we're going to compare it with the target value, which is x. If it's equals to the value, then we can just simply return the index of it, or we can just return found or something like that. Okay, so we're just going to say for I in range, right? You're going to go to the range from a length of the array. Okay, so we're going to go from 0 until the length of that array. Okay, so for each of this value, you're going to compare. You're going to check if item, which is this array, the value of it is equals to our x value. If it's equals, if that's true, then what we're simply going to do, we're going to just return. I'm going to return a simple 1 to indicate that you have found it, and then else, if you have gone through the whole for loop and then you haven't found it, you're simply going to return a -1. That's all we're going to do. So that's how we can implement linear search in Python. So very simple, right? So now let's create a list here, and then this list is just going to be some numbers. So 8, 6. This will be 6 and 4, and then we can include here let's say 5. Okay, great. So now let's try to let's print out the return of a linear search. Let's pass in our list, which is just our array. In Python we call it a list, and then we're going to look for the element 4. Okay, so 4 is going to be at index 0, 1, 2, 3. So we're going to expect to return a 3 from this. So I'm going to just save this, and then I'm going to run this right now. So I'm going to run that code. Let me just clear my terminal for now, and then let me run Python file in terminal, and this is going to run my code, and then it's going to return to us a value of 3, because we're going to compare each of these values with the value of x, and the one that is equals to it, you're simply going to return its value right here. Okay, and I actually made a mistake. This is not actually 1, this should actually be I. Okay, my bad. So I'm going to run that file again, and you can see we got back 3 because 4 is located at index 3. Now let's try to search for 5. 5 is located at index 4, so let me just run this in terminal, so we should get back 4. Okay, great. So let me just try out 2. 2 should return to us 0, right, because it's found at index 0. So let me just run that in. You can see we got back index 0. So now let me just try for a number that is not within the array, and then this is simply going to return to us a -1, indicating that it has not been found, and we get -1. Great. So that's how we can simply implement a linear search in Python. Now let's implement linear search using C++. So I'm going to create a file here. I'm going to call it linear_search, and then this linear search.cpp, I'm going to call a cpp file, and then I'm going to just include iostream, and then I'm going to say using namespace std, and then int main. Okay, just going to return it, and then you're going to return just 0. Great. So now we are going to come up here, and then we're going to create a function that is going to return to us to perform linear search in C++. Okay, so we're going to, this function is going to have a return type of int. You're going to just call this linear_search, just like this. And then this function is just going to return to us a linear value, an integer value instead. So we're going to take in a couple of parameters. So we're going to take in an array. So we're going to say int arr, this is going to be an array, and then you're going to take in the length of that array. Now in C++ you have to pass in the length, and then you're going to take in the value that you're trying to look for, which is x. So now now that we have that, you're going to loop through to this, and then you're going to find the element that you want. So you're going to say create a for loop here. Int I, I'm going to say I is 0, while is less than n, right, this is the number of elements in there. You're going to do an increment I++, and then you're going to check for each of these elements. You're going to check if arr and then I, right, is equals to the target that you're looking, which is just x. If that's true, you're still going to return, I, where that element is found. If that's not true and you have gone through the whole list, you're just simply going to return -1 at the end of the time. Great. So that's all we need to implement that in C++. So now we can come in here and create an array, and then we can give it some values in here, and I'm just going to give it some random values. Can give it 7, 8, just some random values. Okay, so let me just make sure that they're all unique. Great. So now that we have that, I'm just going to now call that function. I'm going to output whatever that function is going to return to me. I'm going to call it linear search, and I'm going to pass in my array, and I'm going to pass in the length, which is just I'm going to calculate n just in a second, and I'm going to look for the value. For example, let's try to look for index 8. Okay, and then we can just end that line. So now we need to calculate what n is. So n is going to be an integer, and it's just going to be the size of that array. So size of, and I'm going to pass in my array divided by the size of, and then this is going to be arr, the first element in there. So that should return to us the size of the array. So you're going to pass in the array, the size of it, and then the value that you're looking for. So now you're looking for 8 inside of this. So this should return to us the index where 8 is found. This is 0, 1, 2. So we should expect to get back to whenever you run this code. So I'm going to run this code, and I got an error listing before numeric constant. Let's see where the error is. Int okay, so let me just see. So int value, we have passed in the array. So let me just run this one more time. We got back 2. Okay, I don't know why it was giving me that error, but we got back 2, and the 2 is where that index is from, because it's 0, 1, 2. Okay, so it's found at index 2. So let's try to look for 4, where 4 can be found. So 4 is going to be found at index 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So we should get back 5, and if I run this, we got back 5. Great. So we get back at index 5. That's where the 4 is located. So if I search for index the index of 3, index of 3, that actually doesn't exist within our array, so we should get back a negative value, and we can still get back a -1. Great. So that shows that that's how we can implement a linear search in C++. So This is how we can implement a linear search using C++. Very simple and straight to the point. Now let's try to implement the linear search in Java. So let's go to linear search.java, and then I'm going to simply gonna create in here a file. So I'm going to create a public static void main, and then you're going to pass in string args, and then passing that. Okay, and then you're going to come up here and create, and I'm going to create another class here. So sorry, a method. It's going to be a static method, and then I'm simply it's going to have a return type of int, and I'm going to call it linear search, and then it's going to just take in an array. So this linear search is going to take in an array. It's going to be of type int, and it's also going to take in an int value x, which is the value that you're trying to search for within our array. So in here, simply going to loop through, and then you're going to say create a for loop for int I should be 0 while I is less than the length of the array, and then you're going to do I plus plus, do an increment, and then if the array I is equals to the target x, you're just going to return I where the index of I is. If that's not the, if we go through the whole loop and then if you go to the whole array and we don't find any value that is equals to our target, you're simply going to return -1. Simple. So that's how we need to, that's all we need to do to implement a linear search in Java. Okay, so we're going to loop through each element, and for each element you're going to compare it with the target. If it's equals to the target, you're going to return the index where that occurred. Else, if you go to the whole for loop without finding any value that's equals to the target, means it doesn't exist within our array, and you're simply going to return a -1. Great. So let's go ahead and actually create an array here, and this array, let's just give it some random values. So this is just some random values, then 0. Okay, great. So now that we have that, we can just going to do a system.out.println. I'm simply going to print out the linear search. I'm going to call linear search, and I'm going to pass in the array that you have created, which is just going to be that array right there, and then you're going to pass in the integer, the value you're looking for. So let's try to look for 9, the position of 9. So and then I want to end that semicolon right there. So 9 is located at 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So you should get back 4 as the output. So I'm going to run this code. So I'm going to run Java, run this code, and this code should return to us an output of 4, because 4 is the index where 9 is the index that 9 is located. So you can see we got back here 4. Great. So let's try to look for 0 within this array. So 0 should return to us the index of 5, because that's the index of 0 within our array. So if I run that, we get back 5 right here. So great. So now let's try to search for something that doesn't exist, like 300. It doesn't exist in our array, obviously. So if I run this should just return to me a -1, indicating that it doesn't exist within our array. So guys, that's how you can implement a linked list in Java, C++, and Python. So I hope you like this tutorial. If you like this tutorial, kindly give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my YouTube channel for more videos like this. So thanks for watching. See you in the next one. Keep safe.